We're going live. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear us? I think they can, although I can't see us yet.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep,
Okay.
There we are. We're live. Hello, everybody. So I said we were going to be like 15 minutes early, and we're like 4 minutes early. So classic hidden true crime. Sorry, everybody. We're still learning our tech stuff. So we are working on getting a StreamYard. StreamYard is going to be our new format, a streaming format we use, but we're still working on it. And so here we are on Zoom tonight. It might be the last time we do Zoom, but we did it. And everyone's saying they can hear us both. Are our volumes okay? John, will you just say hello a couple of times?
How's this? Is this okay?
I think so. Everyone says yes. So I can hear you great. You guys in chat, John cannot see chat. I can. In chat, keep us posted on our volumes and what you can and can't hear. All right. Hello, Debbie Day from Oregon. Hello, Janine, Cindy, Rachel, Rowan, Megan, Pam. Thank you, Holly, so much for the super chat or the gift. And all right, we have a big show. Is that right, John? Big show ahead of us.
I guess it depends on how you define big show, but yeah, we'll be probing the inner psyche of Alex Cox. So I don't know. For some people, that might be a big show. For some people, it might not be. So I guess it depends on who you ask. But
how about that? A good amount of information we need to get through. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alex Cox he's always been a little bit of an enigma for a couple reasons on this case. Number one, he was deceased before a lot of this started coming out, or before information started coming out. So I think his interview is unique in the sense that it gives us a chance to really kind of look at Alex Cox in person, in a room, obviously on video, but it still gives us kind of an up and close look at Alex Cox, which is unique.
Agree. Dal, thank you. Dal Pace. We just answered, I don't know if you know yet, Dal, but we just answered a question you asked us on our Patreon page last night. We did a 20-minute bonus episode answering one of your questions. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah, the Joker question. Great question, by the way. Thanks, Dale.
So let's begin by sharing our screen. Once again, I have put Alex Cox's police interview into Adobe Premiere because it's easier for me to control and go back and forth. I'm an editor, so it's easier than a YouTube video. So let's get this going. And why don't you tell them a little bit about this, that it's going to be the day that Charles was killed, that this interview was done.
Right. So I haven't seen the exact timestamp, but it appears to be several hours after the killing.
Yeah, it was right after calling 911, and then they took Tylee and Lori and Alex to the police station. All right. Can you see that, Dr. John?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. And I'm going to pull up chat on my phone because I'm not going to be able to see it here. Let's see. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. All right. Got it here. Oh, thank you, Julie. Julie Holton, like the Joker question. She hasn't seen it either. And Dal didn't even know. She just wrote back and she said, I did? Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
John's been thinking about your question for a couple of months, so that's on our Patreon account. All right, I shared the sound. I know that last time I couldn't hear Tylee's and you could, so let me double check and see if I can hear this, if that's okay. Yep, I'm going to be able to hear it. So where do you want to start? So let's really quickly, we come in, there's a slow start. We get situated. Let's fast forward. I think, so let's start here when they come in. Sounds good?
Mm-hmm. Can the listeners hear
Can everybody hear? I think so. It looks good. There's a little bit of a lapse, but I think everyone can hear. We'll learn quickly if they can.
Okay.
How does it feel right now? Okay. Any headaches you have at all right now? No, a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. You're not feeling nauseous or anything? A little bit. I'm bad. Okay. Do you want me to call paramedics? Check you out, or? No, I think it's more adrenaline than anything. Gotcha. Do you have any medical issues that might be underlying? Yeah, I'm slightly overweight. Yeah. Okay. Well, you join the club. Other than that, high blood pressure or anything, or?
So can you pause it for a second, Warren?
Yep.
So, I mean, one interesting thing about that little moment was he's basically asking Alex if he wants help or if there's any pain. And Alex says it's more adrenaline than anything else, which is, I think that's a really interesting response because it suggests a couple of things. Number one, he's not feeling pain, like his injuries aren't worthy of treatment, or he doesn't perceive them to be serious enough to require treatment, which we know that he says he was hit by a baseball bat. I mean, this has been talked about a lot, but obviously if Charles was swinging a baseball bat at someone, I wouldn't want it to be me because I don't think I would get up from that. But this is an injury that he sees as minor. So that's interesting. And he also described the more adrenaline comment, I think, is interesting too, because it suggests that he was keyed up or he was amped up during the event. Now, I mean, you would expect that to be normal in a situation where there's a confrontation, but he's really kind of avoiding the officer's question, which is about whether he needs treatment. And it's a peculiar answer to say that he's running on adrenaline because it suggests that he's probably still anxious about what's about to happen, or he's concerned about the questioning that's going to follow.
Right. Adrenaline is a weird
way
to describe.
It doesn't fit the question.
Yeah. So people said it was too quiet. So I actually went into Adobe, brought the volume up and turned it up. So we'll see if this is better. But
Okay.
do you want me to continue here or skip ahead a little bit to maybe?
Yeah, skip ahead a little bit. Why don't we go to
5
like
minutes.
5 minutes?
Okay. And while we do that, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better volume. Let me know again. I'm checking out chat while we do this and I'm going to keep trying to fix it.
It's a lot of the time sitting in the car, driving around, I want to stand a lot of the time. It's too hard to write kids.
So the thing I would ask people to look at here is you have an officer in an interview room with a suspect. I think it's really useful to pay attention to how he's responding to this. With Tylee, we know that Tylee couldn't sit still. Tylee was moving all the time. She was cracking all her joints, knuckles. toes, whatever. She was playing with a water bottle. It's really interesting to watch Alex Cox at this moment, or throughout much of this interview. Actually, this goes on for over 2 hours, but it's really, really interesting to observe his body language and his movements or lack of movements. So I would kind of direct people to pay attention to how he's responding at the moment, or how his body is reacting, or how he's reacting to the officer in the room.
Okay. Which there's no sound here, but I'm just playing it to point out he's just still as can be. So I'm playing it. I'm playing this just a little bit longer, even though he doesn't say anything.
Right. So this is the film is going. This is real time, and he hasn't moved an inch. I mean, he's like a statue, right? So
Opposite
really
of Tylee, completely opposite.
Complete opposite of Tylee, right? And so, I mean, there's a in Buddhism, there's a term called monkey mind, which is that we all have like racing thoughts, and we have minds that we have thoughts that kind of bounce around, and they're hard to control. That's a normal, typical way that the brain works. That the brain kind of thoughts kind of come and go quickly. In some cases, they're racing thoughts. Like with Tylee, I presume that her thought process was very quick, very fast. That she was going through many, many thoughts at the same time, and her response to that was anxiety, was movement, she was trying to find a way to calm herself. But here with Alex Cox, there's none of that. He's completely still. The term I used when Laura and I first reviewed this video was that he's very robotic. It almost feels like someone's sitting in another room with a remote control, kind of controlling his behaviors. Like he's an automaton. He's not moving at all. And that is so atypical. My comment or my response to that is, when I first saw this, I was just shocked because of the 400 plus evaluations I've done, maybe over 500 evaluations I've done. I've seen someone with this level of calm and stillness maybe 4 or 5 times. And one of those was someone on death row. So I'll let our listeners make the inference about that. But it's highly unusual for a suspect who's about to be interrogated to be this calm and this still. It suggests almost that he's like an empty vessel, or at the very least, there's sort of a lack of complexity, and he's able to empty his mind of all thoughts. So most of us who struggle with monkey mind, that doesn't seem to be the case here. He seems not to have anything in his mind.
Well, and people are pointing out not very adrenaline-like.
Right.
If this is Alex on adrenaline, what's Alex not on adrenaline?
Although that's a really interesting observation, because in some, and I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but in some psychopaths, it's well known that when they're in life-threatening or very tense situations, their heartbeats actually go down.
Oh,
so
interesting.
their adrenaline goes up, but their heart rate goes down. And so this could very well be that type of situation where his adrenaline is kicked up, but he's completely calm. And one of the elements, or one of the factors that they're now studying related to psychopathy, is what's called boldness. And boldness is essentially someone who's a little more sensation seeking. They take a little more risk than a typical person, but they're also able to stay calm in very tense and high pressure situations. And I think you're definitely seeing that here. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Cox kind of fits that criteria for boldness as it applies to psychopaths.
Interesting. All right. Should I keep playing here? Do you want me to move forward a little bit?
Yeah, keep going forward. Go to roughly like 9 minutes.
Okay, we'll just start watching from 9 minutes and we'll just kind of watch together. And then we'll test the volume. This might be as high as I can get it, but just let me know and maybe I can try some other troubleshooting too if it doesn't work.
So the big thing I want to do is just make sure that we have.
So I lost the volume there.
Well, I stayed the night with my sisters.
Okay.
We're planning to go do something fun day. We haven't really decided. I was thinking maybe I was going to take her to the range.
Okay.
Or go do something.
Okay.
Also, okay, he slept at her house because he was going to maybe take his sister to the range or go do something. And that's why he stayed at her house.
Right. This is the theme that the detective keeps coming back to, which is why was he spending the night? And Alex never really gives a good answer to that question. So I think this response about taking Lori to the range is really interesting on a lot of levels. But the first level is that I'm sure the detective is making note of the fact that this is a family that knows their way around firearms, right? Which which is no big deal unless two people who know their way around firearms happen to be in a room with a murdered person. So so I think that's interesting. That would catch my attention that he's going to take her to the range. That's not typically, I mean, it's not atypical maybe, but it's probably not the most typical kind of brother sister outing to have fun. Anyway, this is a theme that the detective comes back to again and again, and rightly so, which is why is Alex there? He doesn't live far from Lori. Why doesn't he just meet her at the range, right? Why does he have to be in the home at 7:30 in the morning when Charles comes back?
Right. Right. So supposedly it's still quiet. This is going to be me testing some things and asking people. If anything, I click sharing sound. If anything, I will move my microphone around and let it, catch the sound. So let's just see how this does, because before we keep moving on, I want people to be able to hear. They just say it's really quiet.
Okay, I have very little understanding or knowledge of what happened. Patrol kind of, the guys that talk to you out there, it kind of turns into a phone game. So, you know what I mean? When they go.
So let's just see. If we're going to continue, we want to be able to get this right. And then if not, what I'll do is I'll flip my microphone around and let it go into my microphone. We're getting thumbs up. Some people are saying it's low on the video. So I'm on Zoom. I am streaming screen with sound. So we'll keep going and I will put my microphone on it in hopes that it's better. Should we go forward to 12, babe?
So that the officer asks him to tell the story. I don't know. I think people that haven't watched it might want to see that part.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it starts at about what, 10? I agree with that.
Yeah, right around 9:30-ish.
Okay, we'll start there. And then everyone in chat, I'm going to be watching the chat to get audio advice. I will try turning my microphone off, turning it on, turning it towards the sound, and just keep me posted if it's something I do helps. 9:30-ish?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
That's your sister. Your sister's name is Lori. L-O-R-I? Okay. So the big thing I want to do is just make sure that we have all the details accurate and factual. So because kind of some of the information we got from patrol didn't really match up what Lori told us compared to. So walk me through what happened today.
Well, I stayed the night with my sisters.
Okay.
We're planning to go do something fun day. We haven't really decided. I was thinking maybe I was going to take her to the range.
Okay.
Or go do something.
Okay.
I'm going to take her to some water park or movie or whatever. So stayed there last night, and this morning Charlie showed up. And I don't know what started it.
And Charles is your brother-in-law, and again, Lori were married.
Yes.
Okay.
So he showed up. He was following her and yelling. And then I got between them. And then Kylie came out with her bat. And I had separated for a minute. My sister walked around with her in the living room. And then Charles was following Lori and yelling. And Kylie told him to get back. She took her bat like that and shoved it and took the bat away. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I got between them and he hit me. And I just went down, and when I got up, he was still yelling. And so I went into the bedroom where I was staying, grabbed my gun, and I came back.
Okay.
And told him to put the gun down. All right. Hit me. And I just went down, and when I got up, he was still yelling. And so I went into the bedroom where I was staying, grabbed my gun, and I came back.
Okay.
And told him to put the gun down, or the bat down. And he came to me and was saying, "What are you gonna do? Like that, come to me with the bat?" So put it down. He looked, he came at me, so.
Okay. So when that argument.
I just want to point out, listen carefully, because there are two parts where he tells the full story of what happens. There's right now, and then there's later in the, there's right now, and then there's later in the interview, and his story changes. This is me talking in my mic. It goes there. Anything you want to say right now, Dr. John, or should we keep listening?
Just, this is, so if I'm doing an interview in a room like this, I'm paying really close attention to the first story, the first version of events. I mean, usually when I'm called in to do an evaluation, I've already gotten different versions from the victim, or, things have proceeded through the judicial system, usually by the time I come in to some degree. But it's always interesting to pay really close attention to the first version or the first story told, because that becomes the benchmark against which, other stories or editions get measured. So if he gets the first story wrong or incorrect and starts amending it, he loses a lot of credibility. And in fact, he does that. So
Yes, he does.
he changed, the story changes a lot, and Tylee tells a very different story as well. So I think this part is important, because the first version of events is always really critical to, to kind of set the stage, to serve as a benchmark for future amendments to that story or revisions to that story.
Right, exactly. He really changed the story.
When that first started between Lori and Charles.
Yeah.
Where in the house were they?
I don't know.
Okay. Where did you first?
I was in my bedroom.
Okay, so you were in
I was
the
saying,
and you heard the argument.
when they came right towards me.
Okay, so they were coming down the hallway towards the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you heard the argument, you step out, what's the first thing that you see?
Charles chasing after Lori and yelling.
Okay. Had Tylee already gotten the bat? Did he already have the bat? Okay.
No.
So Charles is coming towards Lori, or coming towards Lori.
And I shoved him back.
Okay.
I said, "What are you doing?" Because he's coming at her aggressively.
Okay.
He's a big dude, so he's not gonna hurt my sister.
Okay. So he's coming at her.
Yeah.
And you shoved him back.
Yeah.
What happened right after that? And this in the one, I'm sorry,
He
interrupt you.
got back up and comes right to me, doesn't look at me, and continues to yell at Lori.
Okay.
So he's maybe this far away.
Are you in the hallway of the house, or
Right close to the doorway of that bedroom.
the bedroom you were staying?
Yes.
Okay. And you're right near the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, I don't remember why, he backed up, and then my sister came around behind me, and they ended up in the living room, and then while they're on the way to the living room, Tylee comes out of her bedroom, which is adjacent to the one I was staying in,
Okay.
with her bat,
Okay.
yelling at Charles. Actually, she was behind Charles at first, and then she got around in front of him in the living room.
Okay. So he then went back towards the living room?
Yes.
After you shoved him, did he fall to the ground when you shoved him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he falls to the ground, he gets back up, you're blocking between him and Lori.
Yes.
And he basically is talking talking past you, still yelling at Lori?
Yes,
Is that what he's saying?
I don't remember.
Okay. So,
Here he's saying, by the way, that he's going after Lori. That's what, here he's saying he's going after Lori. So keep listening to this.
as you're standing there between them, what happened right after that? Is that when Tylee came out with her back?
He backed up.
Okay,
He heard something and then he backed up. And then Lori went by me and around me in the hallway.
mhm,
So he backed up, I cleared the doorway. So then she came around and then Charles was behind her, pursuing her again aggressively.
okay,
Tylee came out, yelled at him with the bat.
okay. Now, are you guys in the living room then, or still in the hallway?
It starts in the hallway and it goes to the living room.
Okay,
So Tylee gets around in the living room, he stops. Tylee goes around to the front of him, tells him to back off.
what I find it easiest to do in situations like this. Kind of draw a rough plan. Sure.
And he came to me and was saying, what are you gonna do? Like that, coming to me with the bat? So put it down, he wouldn't, he came at me, so.
Okay, so when that argument first started between Lori and Charles,
Yeah.
where in the house were they?
I don't know.
Okay, where did you first?
I was in my bedroom.
Okay, so you were in
I
my
was
room,
saying,
and you heard the argument.
when they came right towards me.
Okay, so they were coming down the hallway towards the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you hear the argument, you step out, what's the first thing that you see?
Charles chasing after Lori and Ellen.
Okay, had Tylee already
Charles chasing after Lori.
gotten the bat, did he already have the bat? Okay, so Charles is coming towards Lori, or coming towards Lori,
And I shoved him back.
okay,
I said, what are you doing? Because he's coming at her aggressively.
Okay.
He's a big dude, so he's not gonna hurt my sister.
okay, so he's coming at her,
Yeah,
and you shoved him back.
yeah.
What happened right after that? And this, I'm sorry, to interrupt you.
He got back up and comes right to me, doesn't look at me, and continues to yell at Lori.
Okay,
So he's maybe the smart way.
are you in the hallway of the house, or
Right close to the doorway of that bedroom.
the bedroom you were staying?
Yes.
Okay, and you're right in the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay,
So then, I don't remember why, he backed up. And then my sister came around behind me and they ended up in the living room. And then while they're on the way to the living room, Tylee comes out of her bedroom, which is adjacent to the one I was staying in,
okay,
with her bat,
okay,
yelling at Charles. Actually, she was behind Charles at first, and then she cut around in front of him in the living room.
okay. So he then went back towards the living room?
Yes.
After you shoved him, did he fall to the ground when you shoved him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he falls to the ground, he gets back up, you're blocking between him and Lori,
Yes,
and he basically is talking past you, still yelling at Lori.
yes,
Is that what he's saying?
I don't remember.
Okay, so as you're standing there between them, what happened right after that? Is that when Tylee came out with her back?
He backed up.
Okay,
He heard something and then he backed up. And then Lori went by me and around me in the hallway.
mhm,
So he backed up, I cleared the doorway. So then she came around and then Charles was behind her, pursuing her again aggressively.
okay,
Tylee came out, yelled at him with the bat.
okay. Now, are you guys in the living room then, or still in the hallway?
It starts in the hallway and it goes to the living room.
Okay,
So Tylee gets around in the living room, he stops. Tylee goes around to the front of him, tells him to back off.
what I find it easiest to do in situations like this, to kind of draw a rough plan. Sure.
So we'll make this the living room. All right, and then this is the hallway,
Okay,
and this is the kitchen. So Tyler's bedroom is here, my bedroom is here, and then the living room is here.
okay, can you just put living room in there, so I know, and then that's kitchen,
Yeah,
and then.
so the doorway is here.
Okay, is this area of the house where all of this incident was focused
Yes.
at? Okay,
And there's another bedroom here. This is JJ's bedroom.
okay. So you first get involved when you're down by your room.
They come all the way, she comes in the room, he comes right here, and I stopped him right here.
Okay, so she came into your room. Okay, so she comes in your room, he's coming at her
Yeah.
aggressively, and that's when you push her.
Yep.
So you push her down.
Yep.
And then he gets back up.
Yep. And
And,
then he yells, and then he backs up,
Okay,
and then Lori goes around and goes around him, and they're still going at it,
okay,
right? And then Tiny comes out when she hears what's going on, she has her bat.
okay. Is it a metal bat?
Yeah, it's
Plastic
a
bat?
aluminum bat.
Okay,
So she comes at him, and she's tiny, so that's like her thing, you know, she doesn't have anything, she wants to help defend her mom.
okay.
So she comes at him, and then when
And they've already moved back
Right,
towards the
so they're
living
going
room.
this way.
Okay,
So Lori's here, Tyler's here, Charles is here. I'm here, Tyler goes at him with the bat. Then he takes the bat away from her, and I step towards him and he turned around and cracked me.
is that from the injury that's caused on your head? Okay,
Well, there was some shoving first and I got spun around
okay,
and then popped. So I go back here, grab my gun and come back out. He's still yelling and threatening me.
okay,
And then, so I was standing here and he was there.
okay. So you're saying right there, he's right here.
He's there.
And then you said, what happened when you came out with the gun?
I said, put that bat down. He's like, what are you gonna do? So you're gonna threaten me? I was like, no, I'm just gonna defend myself. So you put that bat down. He goes, what are you gonna do it like that? And he came at me
Okay,
and he'd already hit me in the head.
okay. So he came at you with the bat. What was he doing with the bat when he came at you?
It was in his right hand like this.
Okay, so he's holding it low and he's coming at you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you gave him, how many times did you say you told him to, like, put the bat down?
Once.
Once? Okay. And then he started advancing toward you?
Yes.
How many shots did you fire?
I don't know. Couple.
Okay. Were
A couple shots for self-defense.
Tylee and your sister,
I didn't see him, so I don't know where they were.
where's JJ at during all this?
He's already out in the car.
Okay, so he's sitting out in the car.
I think.
Okay. But you, as far as you think or understand, you're not sure where they were.
Correct.
He's in the corner of the living
Yeah,
room.
they were no longer in the room
Okay,
when I come back out.
okay. So they're out of the room, so it's just you and him.
Yes.
And he basically comes at you with the bat,
Yeah.
you tell him to put it down.
Yeah.
He's ready, like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
And what do you tell him?
I didn't say anything. He's coming at me and I'm holding the gun.
Okay,
If you're gonna attack someone with a gun, you gotta be ready for repercussions.
yeah. So I just wanna make sure, because he basically, you had said earlier that he had the bat.
Yep.
And he asked, like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
And you had already told him to put the bat down, and then he just came at you, and you shot him.
Yep.
Okay. And you think him a couple times?
I mean, it was more than one shot.
Okay. So more than one shot. What kind of gun was it?
45.
Okay. What, Nate?
It's a Springfield XDM.
Okay. So it's an
You want to pause it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, babe.
So that's the official, or that's Alex Cox's initial official version of the crime. So again, it's useful to use that as a benchmark. Just a little bit of should we wait to point out the inconsistencies, or should we mention a few of those now?
No, you can point some of them out now. Also, I have a question for you because you shared this with me. What is the detective trying to get out of him specifically with these questions? You said he was trying to learn a couple of things, like from Alex. He's trying to get. Do you remember what that was?
Well, so he's just trying to elicit a story here. He's trying to get a timeline and a location of the different people. He's just trying to make sense of the incident at this moment, I think. But in general, over the course of the interview, the two things he's looking at are why was he staying the night at the home? And Alex never gives a good answer to that, by the way. So
He never does. Right.
I think, I mean, I know it's easy to be critical after the fact, but when I'm doing these types of interviews and I get really vague answers, I stay with it. And a lot of times I'll circle back. So if I ask the question, I'm a little unclear why you were spending the night there. And he says, I don't remember. I'll stay with that. And I'll say, well, why don't you think about it for a moment? I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure you can recall. Like, I think the detective is pretty quick to back off. It's not uncommon for when you're in a room with the suspect and they're being deceptive. I think it's hard sometimes to confront them or to challenge them. And Alex Cox is kind of a slippery guy because his affect is he's so unemotional and his affect is so flat, like, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but psychopaths tend to be really unemotional. And let me be clear, I'm not diagnosing him as a psychopath, but I'm going to point out similarities to the research on psychopaths and Alex Cox. And one of them is that psychopaths tend to be really unemotional and callous. In the research literature, that's called CU, or callous unemotional, is a variable. And he is all of that. He is callous unemotional to an extreme degree, which, by the way, in terms of detecting lying, that's a trait that comes in very handy because psychopaths do really well on lie detectors because they can flatline their emotions, right? So lie detectors, a polygraph test, are looking for subtle changes in physiological responses to questions, specifically like anxiety, heart rate, that type of stuff. They're looking for subtle changes, but psychopaths are people that can present like Alex Cox that are really, really unemotional. They do exceptionally well with polygraphs because number one, as I pointed out earlier, they're not thinking anything, right? A polygraph is based on the idea that when you hear a question that you're going to think about it, that it's going to, that thought is going to enter your mind and it's going to cause some response. But I think Alex Cox he's able to kind of blunt those types of thoughts. So, and not to have those types of responses. So I think for a detective in a room with a guy like Alex Cox, it's probably really tricky because, he's just not picking up a lot of emotion. There's not a lot of cues here about whether he's telling the truth or not. I mean, we know now he's not, obviously, but at the time he didn't know that.
Yeah. And it really is, let me reiterate, a strange response Alex gave for why he spent the night. He lives close to Lori. So I want to hang out with her the next day and take her to the range or do something with her is not a reason to spend the night. He's still not answering the question. Why not go over in the morning and pick her up? Why are you spending the night? He's not answering. We know that, Summer Cox says that she told Alex to go spend the night because she was worried for Lori's safety. We know that from Melanie Gibb that Lori requested Alex to spend the night because they plotted something. And so nobody has the same story here. And Alex is saying, oh, I spent the night because I wanted to do something with her. Well, that's not a reason to spend the night at your sister's home who lives close.
Right. And the detective senses that. The detective is really he's really on point there. Like he senses that he's lying about that. He's just trying to flush it out. I think and again, I'm not, it's easy to look back in hindsight and make judgments about this. So I don't really want to be critical here. I think police officers are also trained very differently than forensic psychologists. We're trained to kind of look at more emotion and, like, for example, when he enters the room, for me, I think detectives are generally going after content or what's being said. They want the story. Whereas me, when I enter a room, I want to know what's the mood in the room. Is there a lot of anxiety? Is someone I'm sitting next to depressed? I noticed the detective didn't shake his hand, for example. I always shake a hand, even if it's someone on death row. The reason I do that is because it gives me information. I want to assess whether that person is sweaty. Is their palm sweaty? Is their palm cold? Is it not? Are they experiencing anxiety? I can tell that from a handshake. Are they shaking my hand hard? Are they shaking it soft? Are they shaking my hand overly hard? Like, in other words, like with the death row inmate, when I shook his hand, he like practically broke my hand. So he's sending the message, I've got some power here. I've got some control over the situation, right? Like everything that happens in that room is giving me some information. So even from a subtle thing like a handshake, I'm already starting to assess what's going on. A lot of times I'll sit down and I won't say a word for a couple of minutes because I want to see how someone responds. Are they comfortable with silence? If they don't like the silence, do they try to take control? Do they start asking me questions? Do they start asking me personal questions? I've had people say, do you have kids? Are you married? Right? Like, that's that's a strange thing to ask for somebody who's evaluating you and your future. But they do it because they're trying to get some control. They're trying to kind of change the dynamic in the room. And they're trying to start a conversation that's more personal. So it's interesting to think about. It's interesting to think about all of those things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Right. And someone said, well, didn't Lori say that she asked her brother to spend the night? And yes, Lori and Alex's stories are very different. I tried to make our little boxes bigger for everyone, but I don't see it on the YouTube. So I don't know if it's streaming differently, but I am trying to make our little thumbnails bigger, and they're bigger on our screen. So I apologize, they're not there. Someone else wanted us to point out some inconsistencies. I want to say that his first story, one thing that's really important is he explains that Charles was going after Lori, which I don't believe at all, but I'm just showing how his stories change. That Charles was going after Lori later. That's not what we hear. We hear him say that he was going after Tylee. Tylee never said that. Tylee said that he took the bat and that was it.
Well, Tylee also said that when Charles grabbed the bat, he pushed her to the ground. So that is not something you'd miss. That's not something in that scenario that you'd forget. So Alex never mentions any part about Tylee falling to the ground or being shoved to the ground by Charles. That's a huge inconsistency. Right.
Many inconsistencies. But again, yeah, this is hindsight. We're able to look at all of these and look at them again. And, hindsight is 2020. They're clearly experiencing a lot.
I think for the most part at this point, the detective probably tends to believe him to some degree. And maybe that's why he's not being a little more confrontational. I think that question about why did you spend the night, though, I would have liked to have seen him stay with that a little longer and really, not back away from it, because he's right to think that that's, one of the keys here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agree. All right. Do you want me to keep going here or skip ahead?
Go ahead to like 20 minutes.
Okay. We would play the whole thing, everyone, but this is a 2-hour video. So
yeah,
we're going to spare everyone some, and we picked out some spots we want to highlight. Okay.
Okay.
So we would be a step in, I guess.
Okay, so step in. When was the last time he's been in town, or when's the last time you've seen him?
Last time I saw him was at my house in February, March.
Okay. Was he here last night? Did you guys have any interactions with last night?
No.
Is there any history of domestic violence between Lori and Charles?
Not physically that I know of.
Okay. So, how old is Charles?
60, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Just want to point out, he just said there's no violence with Charles ever.
So that's a really important moment. So the detective now is going to try to assess whether there's any violence between Charles and Lori. And that's a really great line of questioning, because he's essentially asking whether there'd be any reason for Alex to be there to protect her, because that's his story. So he wants to know if Lori's safe around Charles. And the response that Alex gives repeatedly is yes, that there's never been any violence, that Charles is not a violent guy. There's no domestic violence. Like, it doesn't, this is another one of those areas that doesn't add up, right? Like, Alex keeps saying that Charles is a good guy. There's no violence. Lori's safe until that day. He says, I've never seen him like that until that day. So what was it about that day? Maybe, the part that's missing here is that maybe Charles sensed that he was in danger, right? Maybe Charles was so keyed up on that day because Alex was spending the night and he didn't expect that. And he said, you have to think that Charles intuited that something was amiss, something was going to happen. So if Charles was keyed up for the, for the first time, and since Alex can remember, there's a reason for that. There's a reason
Well,
because Charles has a keen sense that something is really off.
and we know that from his text to Adam
Right,
Cox,
exactly. And he'd been texting Adam, and Adam kind of alerted him. Adam Cox, Lori's brother, had alerted him that things were strange.
We also know that, according to a couple of sources who feel like Alex or Al has a history of wanting to bait, they use Joe Ryan as an example, bait him into a fight, bait him into being able to hurt him in self-defense. And Lori does mention that in her interview, which Al and Alex doesn't mention here at all, that Lori says that she took Charles's phone and Charles was trying to get his phone back. That's a great way to bait someone. I'd be pretty upset if someone wasn't giving me my phone back either. There's a lot going on. So I do think in some ways, maybe Tylee's story was a little bit true in that they were baiting Charles, trying to get him mad, and Tylee came out to some yelling, but it wasn't Charles. It was Charles trying to defend himself, like trying to get his phone back, trying to get JJ to school. So keep going or skip ahead?
Let's keep going for just a little bit here.
Okay. And here we go.
How's your sister? Okay. Since I have to do that. It's hard to know right. Each birthday or that didn't happen. After 45 years. Is there anything else that you think of that I didn't ask about that I need to know right now? I can't think of anything. Okay. Did Lori ever say, like in the last couple of days, that Charles was coming to town? Yeah, she said he was coming to pick up DJ. Okay. So you guys were expecting him to show up today? Yeah. Okay.
Could you pause it?
Okay. It wasn't like he just showed up.
Could you pause it right there?
Okay, right.
You say stop it.
So yeah. So again, the detective keeps going back to this, rightfully so. So did you expect Charles to show up? Yes. Right. He gets him to acknowledge that. That's so important in terms of he knew he was going to be there. Right. So he can't explain why he's there, but he can explain that he knows Charles is going to be there.
Right. And then he has no good reason for spending the night. And the other people's reasons don't make sense if Alex has never, or if Charles has never been violent before. And which, by the way, Lori and Tylee slightly mention, try to say that he's violent, but then they can't. Tylee says essentially that she's been worried before, and then Lori can't really say a time either. She implies it, but never says that Charles has ever been violent, ever.
Notice also that the detective has his notebook closed at this point. So he's pretty much done writing down or, taking notes. He's kind of made up his mind at this point, I think, which is interesting because he gets this moment of they expected him to show up, but then he doesn't really follow up with that. And I think part of that is he's kind of at this point, he's closed his notebook, and it seems like he's really not going to be invested in following up some of the information he discovered earlier.
Right. He's kind of concluded. Let's keep. Do you want to keep listening or go ahead? Here, I'll just slightly went ahead. Let's listen from here.
Let me just walk you through my understanding of it. Yeah. To make sure that I'm accurate. You were in your room. Yeah. Had you even gotten up and been out of your room? Yeah, brushing my teeth. Okay. So you're in the room, you hear on the phone, and I just hear him come around real quick. Had you seen Charles before or that morning? Yeah. Okay, so you leave in argument. Yeah. But then I see is at the door. At your door. And I shut him back. So Larry comes in your room. Yeah. You're in your room. Yeah. You get at the doorway and basically get between them and the yeah. You push Charles back. he probably fell down to the ground or did fall to the ground.
He stumbled back.
Okay, so he stumbles back, comes right back up, and he's talking past you,
Yes.
still yelling at you.
Yes.
But you don't know what he's yelling.
I don't remember.
Okay, so at some point in time, Charles backs up. Lori comes out, and they both go around you towards the living room.
Yes.
Tiny comes out of the room with the back.
Yeah.
And basically, they made their way into the living room.
Yes.
So Tiny pokes her dad in the back.
In the front. In the chest.
Okay, so she's coming around this way.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's coming around.
So this is Tyler, and that's.
Also, Tylee never says that.
Right. That she poked him.
There was no poking. There was no aggression on Tylee's part.
Right. She said she held the bat out to keep Charles from her mom. Like she
Right.
put the bat between Charles and her mom, and that Charles essentially said, "Don't hit me with the bat," and took it from her. But, a part of Tylee's story could be true, because that would make sense. If someone had a bat, I'd try to take it from them and calm them down and say, "Don't hit me with the bat." But right, he's saying that Tylee poked him with the bat. That's not said by anyone else.
Right. And it's also suggesting, I think he's trying to imply that Tylee was aggressive to, he's trying to justify aggression in the situation. He's trying to say, well, look, this teenage girl was being aggressive too, because she perceived this threat as well as I did. And if she did, if she has to poke him with a bat and become aggressive, then clearly the situation was out of hand, and I had to do that as well.
Right. But we know it's not true. Yeah. Nobody else said it.
Right.
Or we know that nobody else said it. Let's see.
So I think the next moment would be around 24 minutes.
Say that again.
The next interesting moment would be around 24, a little after 24.
Fired a couple times.
Yeah.
But you're not sure how many. You know it was more than one.
I'm pretty sure it was two.
Two. Okay, 2 shots. Where were you aiming on his body?
Just center.
Okay, so you're pretty sure 2 shots in a mass.
Yeah.
He falls to the ground. You don't see Lori or Tyler.
So
Right.
pause that too. The 2 shots to the body, they found a bullet casing embedded in the floor.
Right.
Right. I think that actually is, this moment is really, really critical in this interview, because if the folks at the crime scene had relayed back the information that one of the bullets was embedded in the floor, and here you have Alex Cox saying that there were 2 shots to the body. There's no way 2 shots to the body, the way he's describing it, there's no way that a bullet would end up in the floor.
Right.
Right. So that's a game changer, if, and I don't know how well, different police departments convey information from crime scenes back to detectives at different rates. Sometimes it takes days, but, you have to think that if this detective knew that one of the bullets was embedded in the floor, and he's saying here that he gave him 2 shots to the body, that's a game changer, right? Like, that's so inconsistent and so off the mark and so discrepant that people ask, some people have asked, well, could they have arrested him during this interview? And my answer would
Alex.
be, yeah, Alex, right. Could they have arrested Alex? Yeah. If they had that information, if they had those discrepancies, sure, absolutely. They could have arrested him and at least held him for further questioning if they had concerns or inconsistencies. I know a defense attorney might disagree with that. They might see that as a violation of his rights, but and again, this is all hindsight, but if that detective had learned that one of those bullets, one or both of those bullets were, indented or embedded in the floor, oh my gosh, what an absolute huge discrepancy, right? You can't,
Right.
I wish the detective could have confronted him with that information, right? So, because then you're going to force him, he's already lied about it. Clearly he's lied about it. Now you're going to force him to explain that lie or clarify that lie.
Right. Well, and here's the next lie. Listen to this.
Grab a rag for your head.
Yeah, toss some paper towels and wash my hands off.
And then go back to your room, put the gun down,
Yep.
grab your phone,
Yep.
come back to the kitchen and call me.
Yep.
Okay.
And they want to go through and try to do CPR.
Okay.
He said he tried to do CPR. We've listened to the 911 call where he literally is pretending to do CPR while the operator is walking him through it, even though we know he didn't even make the call for over an hour to 911. Lori left the scene where Tylee says she was inside the house when the gunshot happened. And now we know that they know that he did not do CPR because of the way the body was. They can tell that he did not perform CPR and life-saving measures on Charles.
Right. And that ends up in the probable cause statement. So, yeah. And clearly he doesn't want to perform CPR because he doesn't want Charles to live.
Right. Exactly. So
that gets to motive, that gets to all the things the detective is trying to kind of bring out. But again, the detective isn't going to know that. That would take some time to figure out.
yeah. Yes. And it is normal. It would be, this man just shot and killed somebody. It would be normal to at least hold him for 48 hours because this is not normal.
Especially if you're picking up on a few of those discrepancies. I think there's enough discrepancies here to be of concern, I think, to hold him. And again, sure, this is hindsight, but imagine if they arrested him, right? Or imagine if they charged him and held him. The outcome of this whole case would have been entirely different.
Right. I agree.
There would be more people that would be alive today.
Right. If they knew they were going to get off, murder so easily. And leaving the scene too. Tylee does say, my mother was in there when I heard a shot. She said a sound, which said she now knows what that sound is. And she left the scene. And again, they give the timeline in these interviews. Tylee gives the timeline, Alex and Lori. Tylee says what time she woke up, around 7. The 911 call did not come in with the timeline. It was clear they waited. So should we go?
Let's jump ahead to where the detective leaves the room.
Okay. Got it.
Like 26 minutes.
Yeah, I know what yeah. So now he's alone. The detective has left alone the room. He's alone with his thoughts.
Right. So just play a little bit of this again, please. So pause that, please. So again, like this is extraordinary to me. This is somebody who is sitting like a statue. He just killed someone. In fact, not just someone, he killed his brother-in-law that, he says he had a good relationship with him until that day.
A brother-in-law of 15 years.
Right. A brother-in-law that he knows well, that he's spent time with and eaten meals with. And and here he is like a statue. There's just no emotion at all. Which, as I mentioned earlier, this whole idea of callousness or unemotionality is often associated with psychopathy. To say that Alex Cox is a psychopath, I wouldn't be able to completely say that because I'd need much more information, but this is certainly one of the features of a psychopath, is this ability to really remain calm and unemotional in these types of situations. In fact, there's a significant amount of research showing that during childhood and adolescence that psychopaths tend to have abnormalities in emotional processing, and I think you're seeing some of that here. That just his ability to sit still and be so robotic during a really high, pressure, tense situation. It's amazing. It's unusual.
I agree. Mary Tracy, thank you for your super chat. To Mary Tracy, to preface this, was a dear friend of Alex Cox. We have an interview with Mary Tracy on our YouTube channel for anyone interested in that. She says, even if Alex had been charged, Lori would have remained blameless. Alex would have taken all the responsibility and felt like a superhero. I think that's true. Been the martyr.
And also and thanks, Mary, for being here tonight. But in Mary's interview, that's one of the things she talked about, was that Alex is very unemotional, that, they related on the level of humor and certain things going on in their lives, commonalities in their lives, but there wasn't a big emotional connection, according to Mary. She could correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember in the interview that she was very clear about the fact that that Alex was not emotional. And, clearly you see that in this situation.
This is a story I remember about Mary's. And yes, I say the same thing. Correct me, Mary, if I don't have this exactly right, because it has been a while since we've listened to our interview together. But that Mary was feeling sad because she had liked somebody, there was some dating possibility, and it turned out not to work out. Not with Alex, with somebody completely separate. With Alex, it was completely platonic with Mary. But Mary had hopes for a dating someone potentially, and was feeling a little brokenhearted that it wasn't working out. And Alex made things lighter with humor and made her laugh about it, and essentially said, don't worry about that guy, whatever, but never really delved deeper. And I think that was maybe the type of relationship it was. There are a lot of people that say, oh, he was great, he was funny, but nobody ever says, oh yeah, he talked to me about his emotions, or I remember this one time he was scared, or when he was hurt or sad. It's always very on the surface.
And we'll get into the humor part a little bit later. So why don't we jump way ahead, and when the detective comes back, it's like an hour 15.
Okay. Yes, that is important. I'll get there. Yeah, and Mary, we are sorry for this. This has been, Mary has been a reliable source to us, and she is a kind person who has had a great loss. So thank you, Mary, for being here. We know this is not easy for you, and you have faced this tragedy and the realities of it well, in my opinion. Okay. In learning about your friend, let's see. All right. Oh yeah, here we go.
Maybe,
right when they come back.
Right.
Yep, when they
Okay.
come back, and I'm just gonna. All right. Okay. Here he comes back in. So again, he left for a while. Now we're an hour 15 in, and he comes back in.
Alexander. Well, it's the easiest last name to spell in a long time. She said it's up there. I was asking some questions about it. So I see you got this on, is that from today? Yeah. Okay. And you got something on the back of your head. Do you have any other injuries? You feel any bruising anywhere else? Okay.
Could you pause it and then play that again? That's,
Yes.
I don't know if everybody heard that, but this is like, to me, this is the most important moment in this entire interview. And I'll explain that in a second. But essentially the detective, they're coming back to get pictures and to, get evidence from the crime scene, from his bruises and or injuries. And the detective says, "Do you have any other bruises?" And Alex responds, "I don't feel anything." So let's show that again, please.
Okay. Make sure I have the right spot.
Alexander.
Sorry, I went too far back.
Last name is spelled a long time, but she said something, I was asking some questions about her. So I see you got this, is that from today? Yeah. Okay, and you got something on the back of your head. Do you have any other injuries? You feeling bruising anywhere else? I don't feel anything.
Do you have any bruising anywhere else? I don't feel anything. I'll play one more time.
Other injuries? You feeling bruising anywhere else? I don't feel anything.
So when I'm doing an interview and I ask a question, and the answer is not exactly related, it's related, but indirectly related to the question, and I get a response like this, it's definitely one of those moments I take note of, because the detective is asking him if he has any other bruises. And, a normal response to that would be, like, for example, I had some blood drawn last week and my arm still has a bruise. I don't feel it. There's no pain there, but there's a bruise, right? So if a detective asked me, "Do you have any bruises?" I'd say, "Yeah, I've got a bruise right here." It's, I'm not going to feel it, right? But his response isn't, "I don't have any other bruises," or, maybe there's a bruise on my leg I forgot about. It's not that. It's, "I don't feel anything." Right? Like, he's essentially telling us what we already see. The lack of emotion in the room, the callousness, like, he's not doing this intentionally. This is definitely kind of subconscious. He's basically broadcasting to some degree who he is without knowing he's doing that. He's saying, he's not answering the question, "Do I have any bruises?" He's saying, "I don't feel anything." He's saying, "I don't feel anything about the crime I committed. I don't feel anything about killing Charles. I don't feel anything." Wow, what an unbelievable sentence for someone to say in this situation. And don't get me wrong, he's not specifically saying it about the crime. He's responding to the bruise question, but I think he's really giving us a huge amount of information about who he is in this moment. And not only who he is, but it's consistent with the behavior we can observe. His behavior in the room is someone who's unemotional. And now he's saying this, right? He's saying it in a way that he's not even aware of. But he's essentially saying, "Yeah, I just killed a guy, but I don't feel anything. No bruises, there's no visible repercussions from that."
Thank you. Since we're talking about feelings, even though we wanted to take a couple of questions at the end, maybe Julie Holden brought something up that I want to bring up. She said, that her husband isn't great at talking about feelings. He's more of a doer, like he'll handle emotions through maybe action, being action oriented or doing. And that's certainly true that many people aren't good with their emotions. Can you share the difference that you're trying to point out?
Yeah. So many people, and I grew up in a family, by the way, that wasn't good with emotions. So,
and he is now.
there's a big difference between not being good with your emotions and not feeling anything. So in other words, like, the difference between Julie's husband and Alex Cox is that Julie's husband has emotions. They might just be a little uncomfortable to him. If she really pressed him or forced it, he would express what he's feeling. In other words, he's capable of identifying and expressing his emotions. A psychopath is quite literally unable to feel. They can't process emotion. They literally don't feel. They can't identify what they're feeling. If they do, it's often a manipulation, or it's because they know that in certain social situations they're supposed to feel certain things, and they do it it's deception. They do it. They pretend to feel something when they're really not, because they know it's abnormal. So.
And Julia's saying, yes, it's true. Her husband is a big old sweetheart, in fact. And so the
Right.
difference is
Right.
one doesn't feel anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad to hear that, Julie. So I'd like to meet your husband someday. I'm sure we'd get along well. But yeah, right. There's a lot of people struggle with emotions. So I'm not saying that anybody who struggles with emotions is a psychopath. That's not my point at all. My point is psychopaths are in a very rare category of people who simply don't process emotions. Abigail Marsh has done a lot of research on the amygdala, which is often related to processing emotions. And she's found that in psychopaths, the amygdala tends to be either much smaller or deficient. It malfunctions at some level. And that's why they literally don't process or feel emotions. So that's a big distinction.
Yes. Do you want to go to, let's see.
Play a little more of there's a little bit of laughter after this.
Right.
Are you okay to see that? Sure.
Let's see. It's a little bit farther.
Turn your face that way with your whole body.
Doesn't look like someone hit by a bat.
Right. Okay, please stand good. All right, and then keep your
So I'm gonna put it on the right side, I'll pat the side.
Thanks. I'm gonna put your hands like this. And just kind of that, so your toes are down more.
Okay.
So you're like this. Toe.
Oh, hands up.
Yeah. So you can stand
All
up
right.
straight.
Turns out we moved the camera around.
And then palms up. Okay, so I'm gonna turn your hands up right now, just so that you're not interfering too much.
And then, yeah, as soon as she's all done here, I'll get you in. We'll go next we'll take some pictures. I'll get you your injuries. We'll check your back.
I think it might have been a little earlier.
Use your restroom, and I'll get you a little longer.
Right here.
Anything else other or anything? No, all right. Well, we'll do that.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was between here. That's my time code, but
Okay. I thought it was like 150, closer to 115-ish. Yeah, I think it was a little earlier.
hold on.
Anyway, full service shop.
Right there. Did you hear that?
What did he say?
He said, here's a full service shop. And
Anyway, full service shop.
and he just kind of laughs and giggles. I pointed this out to John because it reminded me of Brian Laundrie's body cam footage, which big day for people watching the Brian Laundrie case. We believe his remains have been found, but it reminded me of him giggling with the police officers at that stop in Moab, Utah. Just sort of, and there's a lot of this. We just found one of them. We've skipped some, but there's a lot of this giggling laughing during the photos being taken.
Yeah, and some self-deprecating humor. And it's normally you might think that this is kind of nervous laughter, but that's not the case here. I think this is what I would call social laughter. It's laughter to try to diffuse the situation. He's trying to, like Brian Laundrie, he's trying to put the officers at ease. He's trying to, join with them. He's trying to build some rapport, and he's doing it with laughter and humor. So it's actually kind of a manipulative type of humor and laughter.
Right. Gabby, thank you for your super chat. She has a question that I'll ask right now, and then we'll keep going. She asks, Dr. John, do you think that Alex and Lori getting away with Charles's murder emboldened Lori and Alex to commit the rest of them?
Yeah, for sure. I think they saw that to some degree it wasn't that hard. I mean, they weren't even really detained. So, I mean, if you commit a murder and you're not detained, at least for like 24 hours, you have to think, wow, this is much easier than I thought, or at least that's possibly what they thought. But yeah, for sure, I think it definitely encouraged them to keep going.
Yes. Yeah. And Liz Johnson missed that dirty laundry news today. Yeah. Check it out, Liz. And then T Diva said, this week has been busy with crime. You're right, Larry. Maya's husband was arrested. It has been a busy week. Thank you, Dr. John, for answering that question. Thank you again, Gabby, for the super chat. All right, let's go to this moment at 126 that I think is really kind of eerie. Can we go there?
Okay.
He continues to laugh while taking these photos.
Right.
Just so you know.
And there's a little bit of self-deprecating humor.
Right. Thank you, Elise Scheme. She just sent us a very generous super chat. She says, we are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. And it is 126. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Another reason I do Premiere, I can find the time codes a lot easier than I can. All right. So we'll start here. So this isn't, was it here when he left? I think this might be it. Hold on.
It's roughly 126:40.
That's what I have, but it feels like it should be this moment because he leaves.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Let's just
Could
see.
be.
Maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
So like,
Yeah, we can't really get on the shade, nothing, right in the truck.
all right, so that's all I need.
That was it. So we're going to play this one more time, but this is the moment where his interview is concluding and the law enforcement says, okay, you're done. And Alex sort of slips, in my opinion. We'll hear what Dr. John has to say.
Yeah, we can't really get on the shade, nothing, right in the truck.
All right, so that's all I need.
Did you hear that? Yes.
Right. So the detective says, I think we're done here. And Alex gives kind of the emphatic yes with the, fist pump. Which to me, the subtext to me on that is, yes, I just got away with murder. Like, I don't know. That's, that's how I see that. I think there's almost a celebratory element to that. Like, I can't believe they're letting me go. I mean, of course, the
Right.
detective's going to call him back, but at least at this moment, it's a strange response. Again, this is someone who several hours ago just killed someone. Right? To engage in kind of a fist pump, Tiger Woods-esque type celebratory moment. It's bizarre. It's like saying, I just got away with murder.
Sort of, again, similar to Brian Laundrie when they're like, yep, she's the aggressor. You're staying in a hotel. And he was just like, wow, okay. Like,
Right.
similar thing. Yeah, we'll watch it one more time.
I just want to make sure, so you're.
Yeah, driving with somebody, yeah, we can't really get on the shade, nothing, right in the truck.
All right, so that's all I need. Okay.
Yes. But then they're not done because they regrouped and realized there were some contradictions. So they bring him back in. So it wasn't so done, Alex.
So let's go to roughly like 1 hour 44.
Go where?
1 hour and 44. Let's skip ahead a little bit until they bring him back.
Okay. So they brought him back. He's sitting there waiting. So he thought he was done. He's not done. No. So many contradictions. They clearly have more questions for him. So he waits, very, very patiently, again, oddly, unlike Tylee, who is anxious and crying and upset. So now he comes back in.
Thanks for your patience. All right, so I was saying, just want to go back to a couple things, real quick. My sister mentioned something kind of historically, I guess She said that she just recently moved back. She went to.
Actually, it's the moment before this. I think we missed it.
Did we miss it? Well, it's right
Yeah.
here. So he probably says it right away. Let's see.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Sorry about that. Thanks for your patience. All right, so I'm staring at that.
He
Right
says
there.
it's fun staring at nothing.
Right. So the detective says, "Thanks for your patience," and Alex Cox says, "It's fun staring at nothing." So this kind of reiterates my earlier point about that really there's he doesn't have much on his mind. He's kind of empty. He's like, I kind of see this as like somebody who could be really gullible because there's no complexity. There's no thoughts, there's no processing, there's no self-reflection, right? He's just staring blankly at a wall and not moving like a statue. He's literally empty, which, is kind of frightening in the sense that if you're empty, you're going to find a way to fill that up with something.
Right.
You're going to fill it up with addictions, or you're going to fill it up with ideology or bizarre religious beliefs like they have with zombies and right. And we know how he filled it up. Right. He filled it up with Chad Daybell's scriptures or writings, I guess. But it's a really interesting moment because he's kind of saying, I'm blank, and which makes him gullible to some extent. And it also suggests that, I think one of the most interesting things about this entire interview is what's not being said. Right? Like there's the police typically will look for a story, and they'll look for inconsistencies in a story, whereas a psychologist or a forensic psychologist is going to look at the whole picture. I'm going to look at emotion. I'm going to look at the handshake, all the stuff I talked about. I'm also going to look at what's not being said, right? What's not being said is, I'm sorry, right? Again, this is his brother-in-law of 15 years. There's no remorse. There's no contrition. There's no apology. Like, think about it. If you killed your brother-in-law, even if it was self-defense, wouldn't you come into that room and say, I feel so badly about what I did. I was defending myself, but I feel such guilt. I feel so bad. You want nope, none of that. No guilt, no apology. There's no anxiety. There's no fear. There's no sorrow, right? He's saying, when he's staring at that wall, he says, it's fun staring at nothing, because there's nothing there. There's no remorse. Maybe there's no conscience. Right. In the end, maybe that's what this is. And that's consistent with psychopathy. But it blows me away to think that Alex Cox can't show any guilt or remorse. Like, it's his brother-in-law. And even if he was defending himself, you would still think that I would be looking for a moment when he would say, I can't believe I did that. I feel so bad about it. I wish I could take it back. I didn't mean to kill him. Right. It was an accident. I was just trying to defend myself and my sister. He doesn't even come close to saying that. It's really remarkable what's not being said. I wish the detective, and again, this is hindsight, I'm not being critical or trying to be critical here, but I wish the detective had said to him, how do you feel about what you did to your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
Do you feel sadness? Do you feel remorse? Do you feel guilt? Do you feel contrition? Do you feel anything? And I think the answer has to be no, he doesn't, because he kind of said that earlier. But man, this is another really critical moment here, because he's right. There's nothing there. There's no conscience there, potentially.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. I really do wonder what he would have said had he been asked those questions. Liz Johnson, thank you for your generous super chat. Dr. John, I want to read to you what one of our wonderful listeners and viewers, Liz Johnson, just said. Gratitude to Dr. John for being one of the most significant sources of calm while thoroughly sharing his professional insight by constantly circling back to the most important details that sometimes get lost when you forget the beginning. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. I appreciate that.
And thank you, Liz, for your constant and consistent support. It means a lot to us. I'm just going to play it one more time and then we'll move on.
Thanks for your patience. All right, so I'm staring at nothing.
It's fun staring at nothing. All right, let's skip ahead because we have a babysitter issue. What do you feel is most important to get to?
Yeah, let's go 146 roughly.
Okay. Is that the 146.50 that I have?
146.10. The detective goes back to why did he spend the night?
Okay.
Is there a reason you spent the night here last night?
No, not really.
Okay,
Just hang out, we were gonna hang out today.
okay.
So play that again quickly.
What?
Could you play that again really quickly? It was fast.
Yes, I will. And thank you, Robin, for your super chat. Thank you so much. She says thank you.
Just hang out, we were gonna hang out today.
Okay. So again, so he's going back over this question. Why'd you spend the night?
Is there a reason you spent the night here last night?
No, not really.
Okay,
Just hang out.
So again,
Today.
Nope, not really. We were going to hang out today.
was there a reason you spent the night? He says, no, not really. I mean, that's not, I don't, and again, I don't want to be critical here, but if I heard that from somebody, I would definitely press that issue. I wouldn't accept, no, not really. I mean, I wouldn't be aggressive about it, but I would definitely press it. I would be inclined to say, yeah, can you give me a moment here and think about it? Because I feel like you were there for a reason.
Right. Right. 46. Let's go to Tylee, 147. Does that work?
I just want to go 146.30 just quickly after this.
Okay.
I was.
okay. So, do you normally carry that with you?
Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't have it on your person during this?
No.
Okay. When we talked about Tylee basically having the bad, Charles taking the bad from Tylee. you said
I think we missed it. He was going back to the issue of previous violence. Did I miss that?
I heard, I have the next thing, someone was going to the ground.
Yeah, it would have been before that.
Okay. So
Tried
40.
146-ish.
In there.
Okay, is the hard plastic?
Yeah, my plastic with the foam and the extra clips and everything.
Okay. Is there a reason you spent the night here last night?
No, not really.
Okay,
Just hang out, we were gonna hang out today.
okay. Did your sister ever tell you she was concerned for her safety or well-being for Charles coming there?
No, but, watching him interact with her, I was.
Okay.
So,
No.
right. So again, Lori has no concerns for her safety. Right. She's never had concerns for her safety. He's right to keep going back to that because that gets to the heart of this issue. If she feels safe, then why did you have a gun in the house? Why did you, why was Charles so agitated? Right.
Right. Right. And it's also different. Everyone's story is different. Also, do you notice his notebook is back open? He clearly came back in for business and he's asking these questions again.
Right.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Fortuna report. Thank you so much. She says, excellent work, you guys. And then let's go to 4650.
What happened? I mean, okay.
And then we went to the ground. And then we separated.
Went to the
So-
ground. That's a no.
Right. So earlier, Alex said that he shoved Charles back. Charles may have fallen to the ground, but he got up quickly. Now he's saying that they both went to the ground. So that's a huge discrepancy.
Right.
Either they both went to the ground or they didn't. It's simple. He knows that. It just happened.
Right.
His adrenaline is kicked up, which means he's going to remember details much better than most people would.
Okay. How come you grabbed him from behind?
Because he was in front of me and he was going after Tyler with the bat.
Why did you grab him from behind? Because he was in front of me and he was going after Tylee with the bat. He never, ever mentioned the first time around that he was going after Tylee with the bat. He said Tylee poked him. He never mentioned him going after Tylee. And neither did Tylee mention that.
Right. Tylee never mentioned that Charles was, going after her with the bat. That was, so again, this is a huge discrepancy.
Yeah, huge. Okay, 152. We'll just scroll through these.
So
Yes.
at 148.20,
Okay. So back here.
So is that Laura here?
Looks at me, and he's yelling at me, and he moves towards me.
What was he saying to you? Do you remember? Okay.
I just remember yelling.
Okay.
And then I was watching her body language, and when someone aggressively comes at you,
Okay. Are you,
so that's another discrepancy. Because earlier he knew what Charles was saying to him, or he said what Charles was saying to him, and here he's saying he doesn't remember.
Right. Right. Where do you want me to go next? I've kind of lost my way now.
153-ish.
Okay. I'll find my way again. Don't worry, just for the second.
anything.
gotcha.
On
So
the
she, you were under the impression that she had
Oh, let's go back if it's what I think it is.
murdered that place. How long ago was that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
In 2 months.
Okay. So the last couple of months. But she never said anything about having you come over because she didn't feel safe with him or because he was showing up or anything like that. Okay.
That's clearly because Lori was saying in her interview that, he's like, but she's never said that she felt unsafe to come over. And he was like, no.
Right. That was and again, I mean, he keeps coming back to this, and that's smart. That's what he should do, because he's pointing out, well, why would you kill someone if he, if there's no propensity towards violence, or if she feels safe, why would you kill him? Was there really a risk there?
Right. To someone saying no captions, there should be captions after the live for playback. Okay, 153 is important. We got a little bit of projection going on, our favorite psychological discussion when it comes to the Daybells. The Daybell case, a lot of projection going on.
Tell you that. No, I don't know. A couple weeks ago, when she got the text.
Okay. So that was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it, but it wasn't anything.
Gotcha.
On
So
the
you
time,
were under the impression that she had you there to make sure that he was, didn't cause an issue or anything like that. And you had your gun, usually you didn't bring a gun for that purpose.
I always carry it.
Okay.
And I had another gun in the truck. And my niece just gave me a gun. I thought maybe with a shooting range. Because my niece gave me a 380.
Okay.
She didn't want it anymore.
Gotcha.
So I was going to take it to my sister. She's got tiny hands. I said, let her shoot it.
Okay. Just recreational sport, not because she needed her self-protection or anything.
I never considered Charles to be violent or a threat before today.
Okay.
I never considered Charles to be violent or a threat until today. He keeps reiterating it.
Yeah, I know.
I think we missed a point, and rather
Yeah.
than find it because we need to finish, can I just say what he said? That he had said, oh, maybe it'll be right now. Let's keep playing it. And then Gabby, thank you for your super chat and question. We'll take that right now too in just a second.
When you grabbed him, when he was going after Tyler and your sister, you grabbed him around the shoulder, you yanked him to the ground, but you never saw him swing the bat at you at that time.
Correct.
Okay. When you got up, what happened right after you got up?
Well, we went around and separated, and then I was getting up like this. My head bounced.
Okay. So as you were getting up is when you felt the strength to hit. And then you got up, what did go?
So we might have missed it. There's a part where he kind of is pushing him, you know, there's never been a threat with Charles. And then he does say, well, he said that he was going to destroy Lori.
It's like 153. It was earlier.
I'll try one more time. That's where we were earlier.
Maybe back up to like 152:30 or something.
Is it normal for you?
She expressed that he had threatened her in text messages,
Okay.
saying he was going to stop her or destroy her or something.
Yeah.
He said that he had threatened her in text messages saying, I'm glad we went back. That was good to hear that he was going to destroy her, when literally that is what Lori has said to Charles and what he told police. She said, and he had told that to police, this is on body cam footage. She said she's going to destroy me.
Right. Exactly. So that's total projection. He's taking, could you pause it, please?
I was just trying to play it one more time.
Play it again. Okay.
So let me just play it one more time.
Stop her or destroy her or something.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, he's literally taking what Lori said and changing it into Charles saying it, or he's trying to take Lori's words and make them Charles' words, which is absurd. It is projection to a very high degree.
Yeah, and way to go getting that exact timestamp. Even Julie Holden just praised you. Dr. John zeroing in on those exact timestamps. Well done. You got it. And because we're talking about projection, Gabby, thank you for this great question. And this was supposedly, she says, all because Lori wouldn't give Charles his phone back, supposedly. Sounds like it was Lori that was so afraid of Charles that Charles would take, she wouldn't have taken Charles's phone, or at least given Charles his phone back, that Lori was the one that was probably afraid of. She had the stuff to hide, I think is what she's saying. And
yeah, I agree. I think Lori, at this point, Lori's having an affair with Chad, and Charles is onto it, and Tammy's onto it to some degree. So, yeah, Charles wasn't the one who needed to hide things. It was Lori.
Right. So let's go to then 153, 55. I'm so glad you found that. That really was so good. Yeah, he sent her threatening checks like he was going to destroy her. I'm like, no, that was Lori. 153.
Yeah, I think that's most of it. Those are most of the main points.
Yeah. I think so. This is just, there's never been a threat. Oh, we listened to that. There's never been a threat until today. We listened to that. That was
right.
I got my timestamps mixed up.
There's never been a threat or violence before today.
Right.
And so again, just quickly on that point, if I'm a detective, the detective is obviously trying to figure this out, but the question is why? Why is Charles so agitated, right? Is it possible that Alex is playing a role in that? Is it possible that Alex is coming out with the gun the minute Charles comes into the house, right? Like, those are the things I think those are the hypotheses I'd want to develop. That there's no history of violence. Like, in some ways, it's really damning to Alex because he's saying that Charles is fine until today. So what happened today?
Right.
That was different, right? Well, one thing that happened was Alex was in the home. So why not pursue that line of questioning?
Right. What else do we know about Alex? We know that Alex shot and killed Brandon Boudreaux and Melanie, at the time, Melanie Boudreaux's dog. The dog's name was Bodie. This was originally shared from Nicole Cox, Adam's wife, might be an estranged wife or his wife at the time. And we have confirmed this through two separate sources. No, three. So it's been three sources now when you add Nicole. One source says, well, it was because the dog was old, but the other source explains, yes, the dog was a little bit older, but Brandon didn't even know about it. And he took Bodie and just shot him without, and Brandon was horrified. So that's something that is shocking to me. And we've also heard that there's a possibility of a traumatic brain injury when Alex was a child.
Car accident.
Car accident. We have Mary Tracy's interview that she did with us. Again, we're so grateful she did that, and I would recommend that to anyone trying to understand Alex a little bit more. That was last year that we did that interview, almost a year ago, about a year ago. So my question, Dr. John, is someone saying, Julie saying, yes, Julie, he did that. He shot the dog. He shot Bodie. So thank you, Robin B, for your super chat. With all of that being said, John, I'm just curious if you want to, with all of this that we know about him and what you've seen, he's dead now. What we believe he did too. He was capable of being a hitman for Lori.
Right.
He was capable of being manipulated by Chad and the patriarchal blessing. He has an ex-wife we've heard from now that has said some interesting things. One
of those things, by the way, being that he would travel to Colombia, and apparently, and I don't, this is the ex, so this hasn't been verified by any other sources, but that he would have sex with underage girls, or at least like 15-year-olds.
Yeah. Yes. And the ex-wife said that he had sex with a 15-year-old. So with all of that, what do you think of Alex Cox?
And again, I can't really diagnose because I don't know Alex Cox and I've never met him. But I mean, I think when you add all this up and
violence and Joe Ryan, he tased Joe Ryan.
Right. Aggravated
assault. Thank you for mentioning that too.
Yeah. I think when you have all that information and you put it and you look at this interview and you put all the pieces together, I think you're definitely starting to get in the terrain of psychopathy. This is someone I think that would be very high on the trait of being callous and unemotional. So Robert Hare has done a lot of the research on psychopathy. And he developed what's called the psychopathy checklist. And he has a dimension on there called the affective dimension, which means emotion. And, I think you're seeing a lot of psychopathy with Alex in that dimension in particular, and probably in the interpersonal dimension as well. On the affective dimension for Robert Hare, you see things like shallow emotions or lack of emotions, callousness, a lack of empathy, a lack of remorse, guilt, all the things I talked about that he doesn't show in this interview. I mean, I just can't imagine being in a room with someone in this situation and not having that person say, I feel really bad about killing my brother-in-law that, I had Thanksgiving dinner with every year. I didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident. But he doesn't say that, right? Like when you put that together with killing a dog and, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that there's not some type of psychopathy, which maybe translates into a lack of a conscience. And I mean, I don't want to be too harsh because I didn't know Alex Cox, but just looking at all these pieces and looking at him in that room, I wouldn't want to be on his bad list.
Julie Holden brought up Maria from Colombia.
Yeah.
So so I have talked to Maria. Maria is a hidden true crime source, and she's allowed us to use her first name, Maria. And he also told Maria that he was talking to Maria in Colombia. He went to Colombia and met her about. They got quickly into the talk of marriage, and she said, well, my dog. And he said, your dog doesn't come. No, you won't go to college. And then she talks about a moment when they were being intimate, and she looked at him and she was afraid that she saw evil, that he didn't even notice her, and she felt very scared.
Yeah. In forensic psychology, there was a research paper published in 2018 called The Dark Core of Personality. It's written by Mosh Hagen, Hilbig, and Zettler, and they developed this idea that there's something called the D factor. D stands for dark, ironically, which is Chad's rating system, dark, right? But so Chad apparently didn't see Alex as dark, but I promise you that the people who wrote this research article would definitely see Alex Cox as dark. And by that, I mean that they found a number of factors that they think kind of lead to this immoral type behavior, or this antisocial behavior. Some of those elements are narcissism, sense of entitlement, psychopathy, sadism, moral disengagement. There's more. It's a really amazing article, but one thing the authors say is that if you have some of these D factors, you have some more than others, but if you have some of them, you're more inclined to engage in this kind of immoral, antisocial type behavior. And I think it's fair to say, based on what we've seen of Alex Cox, that he's definitely a D factor kind of guy. I think there's a lot of these dark qualities kind of show up with him and with Chad Daybell as well. But so we don't really have to even say he's a psychopath. We can just say that he has a lot of these dark traits. Sadism would be potentially one of those, right? Like, we know nothing. I mean, I don't want to get into this too much, but the moment you talked about with Maria and intimacy, kind of this moment where she was afraid, implies the potential of some sadistic sexual interests. So that's a side of Alex that we're not even scratching the surface of.
Well, and I want to bring that up actually, because there was a brilliant comment early on in this chat that I wanted to bring up, and you reminded me, but it was when you were talking about he doesn't feel anything, and someone said he was trying to feel something through all of his sex, through all of his Columbia trips. Excuse me, YouTube. Now I'm gonna not be able to, now they're gonna dock me points. But for this is why he would go to Columbia for all of these moments, because he was trying to feel something.
Right. And that actually picks up on another strand of psychopaths, which is there's a lot of research, or some research now that's starting to come out, showing that psychopathy is tied to attachment issues during early childhood. So children that are less attached or have insecure attachment styles tend to have problems later with the relationships and intimacy. And I think that certainly could be true with Alex. And it might be one of the reasons he traveled to Colombia, because he was looking for, as that person points out, he was looking for some type of connection or some type of love, specifically, I guess, through sex. But it also shows a certain level of insecurity. I mean, why doesn't he do that here in the States? Why does he need to travel to Colombia? I mean, I'm sure our listeners would have a lot of thoughts on that, but I think it speaks to this deeper issue of attachment.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Could everyone please like our video or give it a thumbs up that's still here? It helps us a lot. It's what YouTube uses to realize videos that they should, show more to people looking. That would mean a lot. And thank you also, everyone, for the super chats. Dr. John, you want to say any final words before we?
Just that I think that this video gives us a better picture of Alex Cox, and he's been a little bit of a mystery. So I think it helps kind of fit these pieces together a little more. There's no doubt in my mind that this is someone who, in the right context, would carry out the orders of other people, because, as he said, he's blank. So, he's someone who could easily be, for lack of a better term, filled up with ideas from other people or ideologies or beliefs or whatever. And I think that's kind of what happened in this situation.
Right. And I think so too. And, you know, and you said, you know, he thought if he was killing zombies, I guess, if you can be really that, you know, manipulated or that deceived into these crazy belief systems and you have a lack of feeling, you can do anything.
Right. He was working for the greater good in his mind, but it's all in the context of kind of this person that's empty and looking for some type of fulfillment wherever he can find it. So whether that's in Colombia having sex with underage girls or joining up with Chad Daybell and Lori and their cult or pseudo cult. You know, he wants to feel some sense of fulfillment or even feel something, anything.
Right. Thank you everyone for being here. As someone pointed out, as a busy true crime week from Maya's case and the laundry case and the Daybell case and the evidence drop. We're continuing to put all of the evidence on our Patreon page, and we actually have a lot more pages that we've been working on, and I'm going to try to get some of those up tonight. And thank you, Chelsea. She loves it when Dr. John gets scholarly. So do I. He's an amazing man. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, Dr. John. Anyway, we'll head off. We have to go grab our son. And thank you everyone for being here. And thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for our super chats and for supporting us. And please let your friends know about us and please subscribe and join our Patreon. We'll be doing quite a few more episodes there as well. We appreciate your support so much. And have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.